Hi, this is Maya from the Worldwide Good News, and I have Patrick Dakaya Solomon, the director of Finding Joe. I had the privilege of seeing that movie Saturday and actually meet Patrick in person here in San Francisco. So, hi, Patrick, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a blast actually being in San Francisco. The movie is kind of my personal experience with Joseph Campbell's material. It's kind of how I came to know Joseph Campbell and kind of the big lessons that I took away from his work. And I wanted to do it in a way that was really accessible to a larger audience. So that was kind of like the starting point, and I had no idea how it was going to turn out. In fact, I'm very shocked that this as the film that I came out with was not the one that I planned.
Why Joseph Campbell?
It's personally for me, Campbell was really his work was kind of there for me in most of my little crisis points in my life, and I really was more of a philosopher, and I liked what he was saying. I liked his philosophy. I liked the idea of following your bliss. Really simple. I liked the idea of the hero's journey. When you read his material, you feel like, or I felt like, I was really grounded in something that was really true. It's always been there. If you look at stories from the dawn of time until now, and in every story that's ever been told, which is what he studied, you can see that common thread. And so when I read it, I went, "Oh my God, I'm connected to the guy in Rome from 2,000 years ago who was doing his story." And you know what I mean? It really felt like a connection to the human species.
Yeah, a connection to the human story,
Yeah,
which, yeah, I think that's how you start the movie. You really kind of touch on a point that's what Joseph Campbell did was every tradition, every time, every era, every kind of person goes through a very similar story. And we look at these myths, we look at these big stories, but they're all connected and they all are basically telling the same story. And that is something that brings us back to ourselves. And that's what I got really big from the movie, letting me remember that I'm part of a bigger story that that we all share.
yeah. I think that's a critical thing, because on the surface it sounds intellectual, but really, when you feel that deep connection, things change for you. Like little problems kind of go away, and you go, "Oh yeah, there's something bigger here."
Getting into the bigger story of humanity. And that's basically what Joseph Campbell was talking about, is that our story is everybody's story, and we are all heroes of our own story, and it doesn't need to be something huge, but I think it gives us a sense of mythology, a sense of putting on a role or attracting a role model, like what is our archetypes, and you actually bring in the archetypes a lot in the movie as well. And our hero is your little kid who plays an awesome role there. Um, but he kind of has to battle his own archetypes. So I mean that's something really amazing that I connected to as well in the story and in my life.
Yeah, I think that's another big thing that I took away from Campbell. This idea that well, two ideas really that you just brought up. One is the idea of archetypes, and you can really see those, a, in stories, and b, in real life, and you can see the connection that happens. It's really an amazing connection once you see it. Then um, when you bring that into real life, when you take that from stories and you say, okay, that's a metaphor for what, and you start looking around, the big thing that I got was the idea of the dragon. The dragon um, is this beast, but when you look at it more closely, it's really kind of a projection. It's really a projection of your own fears. And so, as we say in the movie, you've kind of chosen your monster.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to further simplify it, really the dragon is you, and you're kind of fighting yourself and your own fears.
I've read Joseph Campbell and I've been aware of the concept of following your bliss, the hero's journey, all that for years. But I really love the way that you brought it really to the 21st century by bringing a lot of it was 20th century famous movies, but some of our, the last 10 years, famous movies like Tricks,
Yeah.
Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, definitely Star Wars, that all of them are completely aligned with this hero's journey, with this
Yeah.
story. And yeah.
Isn't it interesting though? It's timeless. I think on the one hand, it makes it easy to understand because I use a lot of contemporary movies. But on the other hand, we're talking about something that's timeless, that that it's the same story over and over and over and over again. And yeah, it changes with each generation, but really the skeleton is the same. I think Akiva didn't say it in the movie, but he said it during his interview. It's basically a mannequin, and you put different clothes on it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is the same stories again and again and again and again from the great myths, from the times of Gilgamesh and even the Bible and the Greek mythology to Norse mythology. It's all the same story back to like our contemporary heroes, whoever they are. If it's Marvel Comics, if it's Star Wars, they're all going through a very similar journey. And if we look at our own lives, we're going through the same thing. So this is a metaphor for our lives. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, is bringing out the hero in you, understanding that you're the hero of your own story, also gives you a lot of power and empowerment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the bigger points that I got from Campbell, and hopefully comes through in the movie, is that once you see your life in that way, then there's really no excuse. It gives you the power. It gives you the chance to become the hero of your life, or the author of your own story, to put it another way. And it gives you less of a chance to be a victim. It gives you less opportunity to say, oh man, the world is just, it's on me, and it's the weight of the world is heavy, and why did this person do that to me, and why did the government do this to me? It takes that away and puts the emphasis on you and your journey, instead of some perceived obstacle or weight or pressure that doesn't exist.
Exactly. Now that's exactly the point that I got very, very loud and clear, is that not only it's our own journey, our own authoring, but we each have our unique genius, unique powers that are within us. And you're bringing an example like Luke, understanding that the forces within them. But that's exactly a metaphor for the forces within us. The power to change is within us. And this is so simple, and it's been told forever and ever and ever. And Joseph Campbell brought it back to the 21st century. You're bringing his legacy into the 21st century with the idea of like, how do we stop being a victim? How do we start taking command of our own lives? And it's so simple.
It's so simple, but it's so hard. If I keep I keep asking this question, why is it, if it's so easy, that everyone isn't doing it? Why is it, if it's so simple, that everyone doesn't see the world that way? And it's a difficult thing to overcome if you've been brought up in a different culture, or if you've been brought up in a home that doesn't teach those things. It's basically you're programmed at a really early age, negatively, usually, not always the case. And then you kind of spend most of your early adult life trying to deprogram yourself and kind of get your own programming. So the big struggle really seems to be kind of overcoming your original programming, really been, or in my case, I didn't have any programming. I was just kind of lost. But I think that really the problem is that the material isn't taught. It's taught in a fundamental way, a fundamentalist way. And it's simple, but it's really hard to find. It's not every person whose parents go, hey man, you ought to follow your bliss and just do what feels right to you. Mostly it's, you should do this, you should go to college, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, you should blah blah blah, whatever it is. And so yeah, it's simple to say follow your bliss and go on your journey, but unless you've been taught that your whole life, it's kind of a struggle to grasp the concept. And then once you get it, then it's another struggle to go out and fight those battles.
For a person who's seeing the movie, gets inspired by it, what would you tell them? How do they embark on their hero's journey? From what you've learned, what would be the first tools to put in place?
It's so dependent on the person, but really, to me, the biggest tool is just to sit down and to think. I think the biggest mistake that most people make is they don't think or contemplate the situation that they're in. And so just to start thinking, just to calm your mind and think about where you are, where you want to be. Ask yourself questions. I love asking the questions like, Deepak Chopra, for instance, says, if you had all the time and all the money in the world, what would you be doing?
Yeah.
Super simple. And then when you start answering questions like that, what would I be doing? What would I really like to do? If I didn't have this job, what job would I have? If I could do anything, what would it be? Start dreaming big, and writing those things down. And really, you start to see patterns in your thought and in your writing, and those things that may have been buried for a while all of a sudden come to the surface, and you go, oh my God, I want to go to clown school and be a clown or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever is your own bliss, because nobody else can really tell you what it is, because it's yours. It's your genius, it's your part in the world, and that's what I believe. That we each are supposed to do what we are supposed to do, not everybody else who's telling us we should do or shouldn't do. Brian Johnson is a wonderful person who was in your movie, and he's been on Worldwide Good News as well. Says you shouldn't shit all over yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just it's just so key. It's really, it's hard to be conscious of the fact that you're doing. I'm a father, right? So unconsciously, I do and say things that my dad said to me when I was a kid, to my kid, and I have to stop and go, okay, wait a minute. That is so cliche, man. I just said the same thing that my dad said. I just regurgitated what I was learning. It's hard to step back and go, okay, what do I want to say here? What is it that I want to say here, and why am I saying it, and what values am I passing on? Those thoughts and those ideas are a battle. You have to. It's really easy to be unconscious. It's really easy to just do what we were programmed to do. My father programmed me just like every other father did. So to break that takes some thought, and it's a little bit of a battle. It's not easy. It's easy just to do nothing and be unconscious, but to be conscious takes some effort.
Yeah, definitely. And for the future, what is your next project on your hero's journey? Because
Lots of projects happening.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there was really a lot of exciting opportunities came up during the movie. The movie was like 5 hours long when I first did it. So there's all these big things. Like it was very biographical. It had a lot of biographical elements of Campbell in it. Could do that. There's a lot of lessons that we just kind of left on the floor. Could do that. Big kind of semi-religious bit about God and consciousness, and could do that. A lot of ideas, but really, I'm just trying to. The short-term thing is to get the movie out there, get it seen. It feels like a child that's not quite walking yet, and I want to see the kid start walking before I have another child.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of movies that talk about, what's the big ideas and all that. And what stood out for me in the movie was not only amazing interviews. I mean, you have Ken Robinson there, you have Brian Johnson, you have all these amazing people, and you can see a list on the website, of course. But it's not only about that. There was a narrative story of the hero, which is your son, that really wrapped it around, and there was wonderful music. So there's a really beautiful gift in that for people watching it. I mean, that is definitely something that I came out of it. It was just enjoyable as a movie, and then you got so much out of it. So I mean, that's definitely something I wanted to thank you.
The response so far has just been really amazing, and I'm really feeling a lot of love. The more people that see it, the more opportunities there are for people to kind of break their conditioning, and maybe just even for a moment kind of go, oh, whoa, there's something bigger out here than what I've been living.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great thing to leave people with. There's a bigger story here, and you can be the author of that story.
Exactly. Yeah, the possibility is way bigger than you imagined it to be, and what can you do to step into that?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you again for our talk today. And everybody go and see the movie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And this was Maya from the Worldwide Good News.